I'm sure this book cover is stirring up a lot of feelings in you. When it was published and kids couldn't put it down, it stirred up a lot of feelings in parents, too. Some of them were so put off, they tried to have the books removed entirely from elementary schools. As a librarian, the idea of removing a book from a library that kids voraciously love reading is about as scary as the stories Alvin Schwartz wrote for us in the Scary Stories series. Which is why I'm kicking off my annual Spooky Stories month with some American folklore featured in Schwartz's series as a tie-in to Banned Books Week. Stick around after the story for some haunting facts on why Banned Books Week is more relevant than ever. The Dead Man's Hand is a cautionary tale that Schwartz based off of some urban legends that were circulating Indiana medical schools in the 1940s. Students there shared many versions, and Schwartz put his own spin on it, so I will be doing that too. So my aunt was in nursing school back in the 70s. She said there were a lot of ladies in the nursing program, but not many looking to become doctors. Not so much because women didn't want to, but because of the scariest thing of all:
heteronormative gender roles.
But my aunt knew of this girl, Jane, who was wickedly smart and stubborn enough to go after what she wanted regardless of obstacles, and what she wanted was to be a doctor. She was lucky to have a family connection to the dean of the local medical school, which was very helpful, but of course meant she had to prove herself twice as hard to her male classmates. They were not a welcoming bunch. The nice ones ignored her, the less nice ones hit on her, and the worst ones tried to sabotage her, implying she'd done less than savory things to obtain the grades she got. Sometimes it even seemed like her professors were against her. Still, Jane persisted. But her classmates got tired of this perseverance, not to mention being outshone by a little lady who refused to put out. A couple of the boys got together and decided that an old-fashioned prank was in order. Maybe that would bring the girl down to earth. The boys stole away with the hand of a cadaver and broke into Jane's room one Wednesday night when she was off at the dining hall. They attached the hand to the cord of her closet light and closed the door. They giggled in glee as they imagined her reaching in unknowing, grasping the hand and pulling the cord, only to have the light illuminate the dead man's hand. "This sort of prank would scare the shit out of me," one of them admitted through guffaws. "It might just give old Janie a heart attack." And they left, snickering. Next day, the boys got to class extra early, waiting for Jane to slink in. They were pretty disappointed when Jane didn't show up at all. They chuckled about it afterwards. Maybe the kid had finally gotten the picture and transferred to the nurses' school. But that Friday, their smiles dropped when the dean of the med school walked into the class and told them that Jane had been found dead in her dormitory. Their faces paled as they heard she'd been found outside her closet door, her hair streaked with white, her face slack, and the cadaver's hand clutched in hers. The two boys scurried back to their frat that night, silent until they were behind the closed door of their own room. "Holy shit," one of them cried, a brawny blonde with a very punchable face. "Do you think it was our fault?" His friend, a slimy shrimp, shrugged it off. "It was just a prank," he said. "It's not our fault if her heart couldn't take it. How does a girl expect to be a doctor if she's that scared of a dead man's hand?" "You're probably right," Blondie conceded, and the boys were silent for a moment. Then Blondie got up. "I need a beer," he said, and he walked over to the mini-fridge. He swung the door open and reached in, but instead of a beer, his hand closed around a woman's head. He screamed, and his friend stumbled away as the head rolled out towards his feet. They recovered, embarrassed at losing their wits in front of each other, and they noticed a medical tag hanging from inside the mini-fridge. Gingerly they picked it up, and they read the handwriting. "See you on Monday, boys. XO, Jane." Libraries promote Banned Books Week every year, but in the last couple of years it has become particularly urgent. Cities and school districts all over the country have seen a huge increase in book bans and book challenges. Wait till you see these numbers. From 2003 to 2012, the American Library Association had a pretty predictable number of book bans and challenges reported to them over the years, about 400 a year. But in 2021, that number jumped to 729 challenges. And last year, that number jumped to over 1,200. And those are just the ones that have been reported. Today, it seems rather quaint that a book like Scary Stories caused such a stir back in the day. Today, the most common reasons that books are being removed from schools and libraries is either because they contain LGBTQ plus characters, or because they realistically address our nation's shamefully racist history. Book bans are just one reason why it is vital you keep yourself connected to local politics. There are steps you can take to make sure this doesn't happen in your community. And I guarantee you that just because you live in a blue state doesn't mean it isn't being attempted where you live. It's been attempted in Rhode Island. Write letters to local press, to your government officials, to school committees supporting the freedom to read. Get directly involved in your board of library trustees or the school committee to ensure that all folks are represented on library bookshelves. And talk to your friends and family about why we should all be able to choose what we read and why we shouldn't govern other people's families on what they can't. If you like my Banned Books Week swag, Out of Print is donating 10% of sales of its Banned Books Week's merch to PEN America, who are fighting for the freedom to write and read and express ourselves through the country. And they are doing that for all of Banned Books Week through October 7th. And at the very least, exercise your right to read by purchasing and borrowing banned books.